Call to order this workshop for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, April 7th, 2026. Roll call.
Director Blair. Burns.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Bristler.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Corum.
Thank you very much. So with that, the purpose of this workshop is to review our housing incentive program that's being proposed by our staff. So with that, I am going to turn the floor over to Ben Rhodes.
Thank you, Matt. So this presenters today, of course, will be me, and then about halfway through the presentation, I'm going to pass the floor over to Randall Clark, who will finish out the presentation. So just a brief overview, what we're going to cover today in the workshop agenda. We're going to talk about purpose and need, some of the data history, housing types, 101, what we're talking about with these different housing types, incentive overview, legal requirements, very important to look at that. Then we're going to go into submittals, review and approval process, a general timeline, and then we'll hopefully leave some time afterwards for some questions. So the purpose and need, why are we doing a housing incentives program? Well, according to multiple sources, our nation is currently experiencing a housing crisis. If you look at the number of homes sold in Northwest Arkansas, that was 3,051 in 2013, but not even a decade later, that increased to 6,030. This resulted in an increase of housing has gone up by 18% in that same period. But the supply, even with the all the development we have seen, has not necessarily caught up with the demand for housing. The key issue there is the lack of affordability for housing, which is starting to squeeze out first-time homeowners and we're moving the screen there. Yep. And other people wanting to get into the real estate market. So the laissez-faire or free market approach, essentially if we just didn't do anything and let the market take care of this, having no program or just doing the business as usual approach will allow for housing to continue to be constructed, of course. However, it would not provide any economic incentives to promote different housing types, which is better serve the community and also increase the housing supply by incentivizing specific housing projects that would otherwise not happen. Free market has allowed for the proliferation of smaller single-family tract homes, but little in the way of alternative housing types, which are such as cottage courts, live-work units, and things of that nature. Diversity in housing will help allow for a broader access to housing, such as for 55 plus senior housing, that the free market may not be as quick to address in the current housing situation due to a variety of constraints in the business world, such as pro formas and things like that. So the housing incentive program is needed to ensure that the needs of a variety of housing types are met. Seniors and first-time home buyers are currently do have to compete for ownership for single-family homes, as on page 2 of the program document as illustrates. So in short, this program is intended to remove some of those constraints. So drilling down a little bit more into our statistics, we have seen a robust growth in the last 20 years. When I first moved to Siloam Springs in 2003, we were just shy of 10,000 people in our community, and at that time, we are now nearly 23,000 people today, and that's based off of just the number of building permits that we've issued. So this is symptomatic data. It's data that we're collecting internally that we can verify that we're getting a certain amount of growth because of that. We permit roughly 300 to 400 units per year. And that's primarily driven by development of single-family neighborhoods. Also a large increase with permitted multifamily. The growth experience in Siloam Springs is not isolated to just Siloam Springs. It is seen regionally throughout all of Northwest Arkansas. In 24 years, the two-county projected population will be over 1 million people. So this represents an increase of 436,714 people from what we have today. So that means more people are going to be coming into our area than what we even have seen historically. And this is from the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission. This was circled in red. That is their two-county projected population in the year 2050. So some of the history of Siloam Springs in terms of our housing. We do have a lot of mix of historic homes that are older than 50 years. Past studies and anecdotal data suggest that there is a need for senior housing. This is defined as people age 55 plus, as well as executive level housing. Based off of census data, city is currently consists of 54% of moderate to lower income families. Prospective industries that are looking for unique quality housing options for workers of all different income levels if they were going to come into our community. The city does have a rich history of many of these types of structures containing characters going back 100 years. You can see some examples there, the Fred Bartell House and the Kemper Harrington House. And these are an asset that we want to protect with infill development. So jumping into the housing types in particular that this program will be addressing, is, we have, of course, what we've been talking about is the 55 plus housing projects, which basically just means any type of development where it's age restricted. So you really do have to be 55 or older to apply to live in that community. And this is example one off of Lake Francis Drive called Sacred Creek Crossing. We also are looking at what we call conservation developments, which means a method of constructing lots and homes closer together or clustering them together with the intention of preserving natural areas around the development. So you see some examples here of just some wooded areas that you're not wanting to develop necessarily, but leave natural or conserve. They also could be prairie lands or specific drainage sensitive areas, things like that. Looking at a cottage court, there isn't really an example of a cottage court in Siloam Springs, but it is becoming a very popular housing option. But essentially what you see in the site plan on the left, it would be one lot that has parking that would be back behind, and then you cluster individual housing around an open green. And usually it's on a single parcel, but you can do what's called a horizontal property regime where you're selling off the individual units themselves, but all the open area around it remains in common ownership.
But Ben, it looks like it takes up the space of two regular lots, is that right?
Yeah, it can, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Interesting.
Then we have elderly assisted living developments. Now, this should not be confused with 24-hour skilled nursing care. That's a different type of facility. This would be just sort of more of assisted living facility, would be something that would be different than the 55 age plus, so it's a little bit different amenity. And then the executive housing, I think a lot of you know what these are, but just basically your larger homes that have the higher end finishing and intended to be more for executive level individuals, maybe from company headquarters that have an executive board that want to live in the community. They would be building houses like these, and these are two examples in our area. And then, of course, we have multifamily structures, and multifamily is not necessarily all look alike, and that's one thing I want to make sure it's clear. You know, it's not always the apartment complex that one might think. you can do different types of multifamily that would look more like townhomes, or like you see the example on the top left there.
Ben, just out of curiosity, the one before, the picture in the bottom right, is that considered townhomes?
It's townhome-style multifamily, if you think of it that way. So it essentially is like a multifamily unit, but you have ground level entry with a staircase inside with a second level for each of
Because
the
it's
units.
on our agenda tonight, and I just didn't know if that was an example of them, or I get mixed up what townhomes are.
Yeah, it would be a good visual example,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. And then we have the infill development, and that kind of is like what it sounds like. It's infill. You have maybe the vacant lot that's in the subdivision or an older part of town just hasn't been built on, and someone purchases it and builds a new construction amongst older homes, basically kind of filling out that neighborhood. It's considered a really good quality development to do that because you're doubling up on your infrastructure. You already have the water line, the sewer line, electric, everything's already there, ready to go. And so you do want to encourage infill before you start doing new subdivisions on the periphery of town. And then that's a perfect segue into this missing middle development. And that was coined by, I have the book right here, Missing Middle Housing. I mean, you guys can look at this, it's by Daniel Parlick. Basically, missing middle infill development, it proposes a gradual transition from densities or land uses to encourage the missing housing types within the community while providing smooth transitions from development to development. So urban missing middle infill development may utilize a mix of different commercial and residential uses, gradually transitioning from commercial to residential that may blend densities from higher density to lower density. So think of it kind of like a wedding cake. You know, you have your highest density right in the middle, and you get lower and lower density as you get further and further out on the edge of town. And that missing middle would be from the high-rise multifamily to the single-family detached. There's a bunch of stuff in between that sometimes is forgotten, like fourplexes, townhomes, live-work units, things like that, that can fill in that gap between the highest density to the lowest density, if that makes sense. So moving into the incentives, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of the entire program. What this is doing is looking at codes. The codes are not city codes. The codes are just a way to define different types of incentives. We have codes A through H. And they're all listed out there on the slide. I'm not going to read all of them because we're going to go through each of them one by one in more detail so you can see what those all entail. So Code A is a waiver of utility extension fees. The city board director may grant a waiver for either a portion of or the entirety of the fee extended to any city utilities to a project location as required by any other municipal code. So just basically waiving those fees. What you see below here are all the different projects that would be eligible for the Code A. And this is what we were just going through, all the different housing types. So we have the 55 plus, conservation, elderly assisted living, executive housing, multifamily, and missing middle. Then we have a Code B, which is a waiver of street impact fees. That might be for either a portion or the entirety of any street impact fee for a project that would otherwise be required by the code. And again, you see the listing of the different projects or the different housing types that would be eligible under the Code B. You have Code C. This is a waiver of building fees, and these fees would not be ones that would otherwise be required by state or other entities that aren't the municipal government. And so the board could have the ability to grant a waiver of certain building fees throughout the project. And then again, with Code C, you have the projects there that are listed on the slide that would be eligible. Code D is looking at drainage infrastructure and getting into the cost share agreement. So this is going to be several of the next incentives grouped together. So the board of directors may enter into a cost share agreement for either a portion or the entire cost of the drainage infrastructure. That would be proposed as on public properties that are owned by the city or within properties that are within a designated drainage easement. And it's important to realize that you cannot, as custodians of public funds, can't use that specifically for private development, but you can enter into a cost share as long as those assets are a public asset at the end of the project. And again, those are the housing types that would be available for that. Again, with another cost share agreement, this is one that would be for street infrastructure improvements that would be proposed within public properties owned by the city, or of course within dedicated easements. And then you have your utility infrastructure cost share agreements. Again, it's kind of the same thing, as long as it's within the public easement or on public property. And then, of course, the housing types that would be included. And then this one is different, not a cost share, but this is a zoning restriction reduction. So as long as this program is adopted in some form as an ordinance within our code of ordinances, the city board of directors may have the ability to, if so choosing, to reduce certain building or zoning code requirements, such as the front setback or things of that nature, and utilizing this specific type of incentive. And we would have caveats in there that, would not have a negative impact on utilities or drainage or any of the adjacent properties. And then I believe this is the last one, Code H is your flood study cost share agreements. So the board of directors may choose to do a cost share for a flood study. That would be otherwise required as part of the development proposal. And that would include a better defined existing special flood hazard areas that may impact more than one property other than the specific property owner. And we have the four there, 55 housing, conservation, elderly assisting, and multifamily that we've included. So that's a lot to remember. So we did put together a handy little chart that gives all the different housing types and then the different codes, the incentive codes, and then what would be suggested as allowed for them. Now, some of them that don't have it is because that incentive wouldn't make sense for that particular development type. For instance, traditional infill housing wouldn't benefit for a utility cost share because there already are utilities at the infill site. This will be my last slide before I hand it over to Randall. We did want to look at the legal requirements, constitutional legality for a program like this. As I mentioned earlier, it does prevent the city from providing public funds to private developers. Therefore, a city can enter into cost-sharing agreements with funds legally set aside using proper procurement procedures. These are within the codes D through F. City can also expend funds within public rights-of-way and easements, streets and utilities to fulfill legitimate public interest or facilitate a desired housing project. Again, that would be like for the 55+ housing or one of the other housing projects that we want to encourage. No public funds can be expended on private property unless there is an appropriate easement and right-of-way. And that does need to happen and be dedicated before the funds are expended. So it's not a promise that we're going to get a future right-of-way. They have to be dedicated first before we can expend public funds on that. And that kind of goes in the next bullet here, that those have to be filed for record. If they're not, that will void out the agreement. There has been some questions about the Residential Design Act 446 from 2019 And if you're not familiar with that, that does prohibit cities from regulating the design of residential buildings. However, that only applies through what we call by right development, where someone has come in, they purchase the property, they have the zoning, and they by right can build what they want to build on there. But if they want to participate in this program, it's a strictly optional program. They're not required to apply for an incentive program. So if they're applying to this program, then we can implement requested design standards, because that's a part of the agreement that they're agreeing to get an incentive for. That makes sense. Example would be for executive level housing, we would include home design requirements and things like that. And without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor over to Randall Clark, building official, to continue.
Just a
the
real quick
presentation.
question, Ben. Have we ever provided incentives for housing in the history of the city, do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, not quite like this, no.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening. For the submittal requirements, they're gonna have to be zoned appropriately as a UPD or with a R standard by right. To be eligible for these incentives, the development has to have the following: a condition of approval to file covenants restricting tenants to be 55 years of age, at least 10 units, 10 dwelling units. And then amenities for those units must be ADA compliant. There must be off-street parking within 1,000 feet of each lot, or a community building that's run by HOA. All the units must be single story, and there must be a fence line at the boundary of the subdivision. And that is for the subdivision. Next, we move on to significant development. Your zoning has to be UPD or R by right. Cottage court has been discussed earlier. That is required for a significant development. Your incentives, you must have a contract with the city that restricts tenants to be 55 years of age for at least 20 years. Covenant restrictions for fences, third-party lawn care, exterior unit maintenance, and dues that are within that, where we have that contract where we can see that those costs will be covered. Again, at least 10 units and amenities that are ADA compliant for each home. Community rooms accessible to the residents for use, and at least half of the units have to be entry at ground level. Fences at the boundary of the subdivision, just like in the other subdivision. Oh, same thing for the significant development or the subdivision. And then we're gonna try to push gated entry, but it's not gonna be required. Yes?
On this document, it says at least 5 units, and on here you say at least 10 units.
So I'm sorry, you have the version 1.1, I believe, and we've gone to a version 1.2.
Okay.
Sorry, we don't have the updated copies.
Huh. I just-
So-
We just appreciate what we have. We appreciate having
Yeah.
it.
So for, when we're talking about a conservation development, you have to have proper zoning, UPD, or an underlying R by right. The development must have condition of approval to file covenants with funding to maintain the common areas and the conservation area restrictions. You have to have at least 30% of the subdivision that's maintained in a forested area, a wetland area, or prairie land to be maintained in perpetuity by conservation easement in the common areas. Those areas have to incorporate appropriate walk paths and trail easements that are outside of the conservation easement. And as before, we want 10 units. Moving on to the elderly assisted living. This is for a significant development permit. Again, you have to have proper zoning, UPD, or an underlying R or C standard or by right. Requires cottage court if they're going to be multiple single-family homes or duplex style. They shall have, they have to be built and operated as an elderly assisted living development and have at least 10 units. For
Randall?
yes.
When I think of the assisted living, I think of generally transitional living, cottages into one main facility, but you're not talking about a main facility. And yet, you are talking about assisted. So there would be staff that would help as needed. Like, where would the staff
Would we
be
have
housed?
staff there, or?
And I think that that's something we can look more into. We tried to take feedback over the past couple of years from each of the board members to try to get a feel for the different types of senior living that the board was looking for. Because I think that it has been a board goal in the past, and it's been individual goals, but I think each board member had a different definition of that. So I think through this process, one of the things that staff will be looking for is for the board to kind of come together and help us define that for you. So we kind of started at this general definition for this assisted living, but we can define it in our code how we feel it should be defined for this program.
Okay.
And the staff just recommends any feedback from the board, and as we just move through this process, we'll take that feedback and make any adjustments that you think would be relevant.
I think of when there's staff involved, there would be a facility where the staff would be, and then they would go out to the cottages, and then, so, just a question. That's I've looked at a lot of assisted living facilities over the last couple of years, so that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Different states have different definitions of, and levels, and so.
What would Heritage Heights be considered? This?
The
What was the question?
Heritage Heights,
Housing development.
I don't know how many number of housing units, but
I'm
it
not
would be
sure.
similar to Heritage Heights. This.
This would be similar to Heritage House?
I believe so. I'm not terribly familiar with Heritage
They
Heights.
have
to be
the
honest.
apartments, but, and then they have the main house.
Yeah.
They don't really have staff, but they have,
They have call lights, or they did
Yeah.
at one time.
yeah, and that somebody would come, yeah.
One thing that would be keep in mind is it could be done with these elderly assisted developments as transitional housing. So like if you look at the picture here, you start out at maybe one of the single family homes, and then when you're not able to do that anymore, then you may transition into the main facility, the
That's what I
bigger
think
building.
USMS.
So it's multi-purpose, it doesn't have to be one stage of life, it could be multiple stages of life, yeah.
But when you see at least 10 units, it doesn't look like that includes the one building where people go when they need assistance.
Yeah, I mean, we were starting a low bar,
Okay.
but we
Okay,
could
I'm
increase
sorry, I
that.
don't want to get you hung up on that, but I was just curious. Okay.
But as many people have been moving, Ben, you were talking about, since you moved here, how many, the population, as their parents age and the people that live here can't go and they often want their parents to move here. And that's why I think it's the biggest demand that we have is finding places for those parents, the elderly parents. And whether it's assisted or independent living or what, there are different, levels of transitional. And so, I think that is definitely our most demanding, or whatever you want to call it, on what we should be going for.
and just to kind of add to that, I think you're spot on with one of the things that this plan talks about is how right now it's with the single family housing that we're building, it's smaller footprints, smaller lots, smaller houses. So what historically those have been used for is first time housing for new families. But what we see today is the first time homeowners are competing with the last time
Right.
homeowners
Yep.
because there's nothing else available for the last time homeowners. So that's a very unique issue where we have the same two different entities or two different demographics competing for that single market space, and the other market space just doesn't exist here.
I think we're smart by going this direction, and we needed it on the books 5 years ago. But what happened with the development, that we had a similar one that was similar to this, is the developers, we didn't have the price point. And so getting it on the books is gonna be our first step, but the next step is you know, as we grow, it may not be tomorrow, maybe 2 years down the road, but we're really banking on those numbers, that we'll get a developer in, and that we have, you know, we have the clientele to fill that need. That's why we've had we've lost projects because we just didn't have those numbers. And whether Siloam likes it or not, those numbers are 30 and 40,000, you know, it has to be volume, right? I mean, that's where we're at. So, I mean, it's a good first step, but it is, in the cottage infill, and I'll use from in the historical part of, and we're in the historical part right now, but from the cottage standpoint, there are either widowers or single people in the 55 plus that want that kind of housing, so that, you know, and they're not on subsidies. I mean, they have money, they have a retirement, but you can leave your home in a neighborhood and go somewhere and travel and come back, and in that setting is a neighborhood setting, and it goes back to what that character of Siloam, right? We had neighborhoods instead of urban sprawl. Nothing against urban sprawl, that's happening, but that's that first step to creating the Mayberry that Director Carroll is desiring so bad to keep. So I appreciate it, and there will be work, but if we stay focused on that and some of these, and I've got some questions for later, but it's a positive. We're going in that positive direction. We've got to have something for developers to entice them to come in.
Sorry to interrupt you, Randall.
No, it's all good. That's why we're here. Okay, executive housing, of course, the zoning has to be correct with UPD or RE, R1, R2 standard or by right. If you use R2, at least 20% of the lots have to meet the RE lot sizes, or 50% shall meet the R1 lot sizes. The development has to have at least, each home has to be 2,000 square feet with high-end interior finishes. 20% of the lots shall be at least 1/4 of an acre. Each home shall have exterior finishings that complement the stylistic architecture of the neighborhood. Each lot has to be sufficient to accommodate a full-size accessory dwelling unit. There's going to be a minimum of a 2-car detached garage required, or an attached 3-car garage. And we want covenants that require all internal structures and fences to be reviewed and approved by an architectural control committee, restricting them to long-lasting, high-quality materials. And that committee is going to be part of HOA, that architectural control committee,
Be part of what?
part of an HOA program.
How many HOAs do we have?
2,
It's hard
maybe
to,
2 or 3.
it's hard to tell how many. Thank you, Mayor. It's hard to tell how many HOAs we have because they go defunct and the city doesn't track those, but there is a method to determine if an HOA is still on file by going to the county, to go to the county record, because a homeowners association has covenants and bylaws that get filed with the county. If those are not filed with the county, then they're not truly a homeowners association. But once those get filed with the county, they stay active even if the individuals don't man the positions. It just takes the homeowners in that association to gather together to reform that homeowners association. Now, in some cases, they have an expiration date. The typical life of a homeowners association, last time I checked, was about 25 years before it goes defunct. Modern subdivisions, for example, let's talk about Roush-Coleman subdivisions. Roush-Coleman comes standard with homeowners associations now. They file those at the beginning of a project whenever they get to the final plat project typically. But once you go to the county, you can pull a copy of those homeowners association covenants. Those are not enforced by the city, but we can require certain things for a program like this, like an architectural control committee, and they would provide us a copy of their filed covenants to determine that they've met that requirement.
Randall, I don't know if you got to the, each lot is sufficient to accommodate a full-size accessory dwelling unit. Is an ADU like a shed off to the side of the home? What is an ADU, actually?
So an ADU is, we've got new state laws that authorizes a single-family dwelling lot to build an ADU on there without splitting off their lot. So an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, someone can build, and we've had it happen twice so far since the law was passed, here in Siloam. It has to be no more than 1,000 square feet by our code, and it can't be more than 75% of the building footprint of the primary structure or the primary house. And
So it's actually a place that can be lived in?
it
It's not-
can, oh, right,
Okay.
it can be lived in,
Okay.
you can rent it out to somebody, you don't
Okay.
have to be blood relatives or
I didn't know
anything
what
like
it
that.
was, yeah.
Yeah,
Like a mother-in-law house or whatever.
correct, yeah.
So Randall, on that, are we required for that ADU to be on a separate, electrical services?
We do not require them to be, it can be supplied by the main house if they want it to. As long as those connections meet code for the electric and the water and the sewer.
And then along the, we talked about this at AML, have we run into any ADUs that are prefabbed homes, or, because I know there's some movement at the state level, and I think somebody's opened up a new facility in the state.
Yeah, I've been approached by a couple of companies, or a couple of people want to do that. And so it's gonna happen. I mean, we just call them modular homes is what it is. I mean, we've had a couple of buildings, been brought in on the commercial level that are like that too. So it's gonna happen on the homes too. We just have to make sure and ensure that the code was met whenever they built that. So we have to go through third-party inspectors, get certificates from those guys, make sure everything's safe for these people who are buying these homes and then wanna set them in accordance with our code for setting, placement.
Yeah, because it's literally, an ADU could be in less than a month.
Oh,
Once
absolutely,
they put the footing and
Absolutely.
facilities in, it's a plug and play,
absolutely.
so.
They're selling them on Amazon.
Yes, they are.
And Facebook Marketplace.
But some of them don't meet Arkansas Building Code.
Oh, yeah, no, I figured such, yeah.
Okay, with multifamily developments, UPD zoning with underline R4 standard or by right zoning. The development, they're gonna have to have at least 10% of the units, not less than one, shall be single bedroom with ADA accessible units. And at least 20% of the units shall be two-bedroom ADA accessible units. On your traditional style infill, zoning has to be H1 historic overlay with an R base zone. The development they're gonna be required to complement the traditional architectural stylings, use type, size, and materials for the structures within 5 lots. And it is gonna be required to have high-end interior finishings.
What is remind me, the R underlying base zone?
Well, it just has to be R2, R3, or
Okay.
just some form of a residential
I got
zone.
you, thanks.
Urban missing middle development, UPD district with a mix of residential, commercial located between residential and commercial areas. Ben kind of explained this earlier. You have to have a smooth transition between each of the neighborhood uses while offering housing types that complement the adjacent uses in a step-up or step-down procedure. So that you don't have a small, single-family house that has a 4-foot or a 4-story apartment complex in their backyard that they're looking up at. This is we're gonna have submittal requirements. Applications will be on a first come, first served basis. The period will close after the maximum number of rewards are given within each of the year, and it's gonna reset on each calendar year. And here's our list of our maximum awards that we've listed to come up with at this time for each one of those awards per year. The process for approval is staff's going to verify that the pre-submittal requirements were completed. If the award for the housing type has been granted, the application, if the maximum number of awards have already been given for that year, then that application will be rejected immediately. Upon verification that we can grant it, We'll send a digital copy to the applicable departments for comments. This is kind of like going to follow our TRC process that we have now for significant developments or, subdivisions. Staff will provide comments back to the applicant to ensure that all of the submittal requirements are met prior to moving forward. And then we will forward it to the city administrator for review after those revisions. And then the city administrator shall confirm that the requirements have been met, determine if funding is available, and submit all documents to the attorney for attorney review. If a request exceeds available funds, the city administrator may administratively deny the request or request the application to be amended. The city attorney shall determine if all the documents, contracts, and other submittal requirements meet the legal requirements. Then, any comments by the city attorney must be addressed by the applicant prior to submitting a resolution to the city board of directors for approval for that incentive agreement. City attorney, after the application's in legal form, shall return the application to the city administrator, and the application packet shall be submitted to the planning commission for review. Upon review, the planning commission will forward it to the board of directors. For the legislative approval process, city board will review the agreement. They can stipulate reasonable conditions of approval that shall observe a rational nexus and rough proportionality requirement pursuant to federal law. The city board of directors is not obligated to approve and may deny for any reason other than those which are otherwise prohibited by law, including denial based on legal protected statuses or capricious and arbitrary determinations. Board approvals are final. An incentives proposal from the same property may not be submitted for a period of 1 year following the board's decision without significant application changes. The city administrator shall determine if a resubmittal constitutes a significant change. And here's our timeline for version 1.2. You can see the first one is tonight's meeting, April 7th. The next one, we want to have a stakeholders meeting with current builders in town around May 7th. And then the public town hall meeting, meet with citizens presenting this slideshow and answer any questions on June 11th. We will submit this to the planning commission for the initial presentation on July 14th. Board of directors approval, which will be the second presentation on August 4th. And the post approval will go live September 14th. And the effective date for the grants will be January 1 of next year. Any questions?
Randall, on the submittal requirements, your maximum awards, how did y'all come up with the number? Like, some of them just have 1, some have 2, the infill has 5. How did you see other places, or?
You'll take it.
I'll take it. No, we just started at that point, so we didn't want to speak for the board, so we kept all the numbers low. If you look at, can you bring that portion back up?
No, I can't. 'Cause I don't know.
I'll go off of it. I think traditional.
It says the maximum number of awards are subject to the funding availability, which makes sense.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
I think one of those is the traditional infill. I believe it says 5.
Yeah,
I just said that because there's going to be
right.
more opportunity for single lot developments. Those numbers can be changed by the board based off of the funding that you want to put into the program. Some of the codes don't require additional funding, but some of the cost share agreements would require us to bring back something for the budget period. And the board would have to determine how you want that, do you want that budgeted by code? And that's a little bit more in-depth budget conversation. But we put those numbers in there as placeholders, nothing more. There's not a specific reason we chose that. For example, if the board didn't want to spend anything for conservation development, you could make a 0 there.
I was wondering if the ones that we've identified we need more of, we might put more.
Yes.
And the ones that we're not necessarily needing more of, we keep at 1 or something. And then the other question I was gonna say, how would you keep, because you said that this is open January 1 and until they're gone, first come, first served. How would you keep a developer from coming in and just signing up for one, even though he may not have plans? on the paper? I mean, is the application, you got to submit everything?
If you don't meet all of the submittal requirements, then the staff will not accept the submission to begin with,
Okay.
so it never even makes it forward.
I didn't know if there was just, you could go in on January 1 and do a placeholder, even though you may not have everything ready for 6
No,
months.
we would have.
Okay, good.
You have to have a development to go along with it. There's some
Good.
specific requirements more into the text of the overall program that identifies the things that you have to do before you can apply for it. And I think concurrent is probably the best option.
When you said first come, first serve, I just want to make sure it's not something that can just, somebody could just go grab one and said, okay.
Yeah, we definitely
okay.
wouldn't allow people to grab them
Yeah.
just to hold on to
Well,
them.
you know,
They
yeah,
have to have a viable project.
yeah.
It can't just be, we want to do something maybe.
Thank you,
Dave,
guys.
Did you have something?
Yes,
you wanted-
Madam Mayor. I would like to hear a little more, or I can hear it later, what I'm gonna call proactive longevity. It's my fancy word today. You can write that down. I am Mr. Senior Housing, let's get her done, let's do it yesterday, and I'm very excited about this. But the concern I have is when you look down the road, we made a stipulation 20 years. And I have, not in our community, but I have seen in Northwest Arkansas, communities that started out 55 plus, and they made it, in essence, to 20 years. And now they are not 55 plus, and there are, in some, 2 families living in an 1,100 square foot home. Cars are parked everywhere. If you had a fire, you just get your marshmallows because it's not going to get put out because the fire truck can't go down the road. And how do we plan this out to where when this has been accomplished, it doesn't fall back to the city basically to take care of housing that has been let go and we have a big mess?
Sure, and as the program advances, one of the things that's good about a program like this is, if you take, for example, Brook and Hill Estates in Fort Smith, there was a lot of, it wasn't necessarily senior housing, but there was a lot of senior members of that community. But as that housing itself aged, you saw that the community built more. So as we go along with this program, I looked at that and I was thinking, well, the program itself should expand more options as time goes by. So if the program is successful, then the board would be able to identify the parts of the program that are successful and allows it to expand over time. So it would, number one, it would replace some of those that may be coming out of that market. I believe that the federal definition, correct me if I'm wrong, Randall, for senior housing is 15 years.
15 for ad funds, they have to go 15 years.
Can you go to the microphone and say that?
Sorry. Yeah, for federal ad fund money funds, it's 15 years minimum.
So 15 years is your typical expectation for a subdivision or a housing project that calls itself senior housing. 15 years isn't a very long time. We wanted to actually expand a little bit on that and add an additional 5 years by contract. That is pretty much the highest standard that these locations will see whenever it comes from a government entity. And if they accept this agreement and accept the contract, then that would at least give us teeth to sink into a project for 20 years.
Okay. Well, I just don't want to see it because it'll come to the city
Yes.
to take care of that, and the builder will have built, sold, and they're on their way, and it's out, and I won't be around for things like that. My time will be expired, but I just don't want to see the city do something wonderful to see it turn into something not. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can we squeeze one more in? I saw you look at your watch.
Yeah, we've got about 9 minutes, so if you can do it in about 3,
I'll do it in one.
you go ahead.
Can we get a copy of the time frame?
Go.
And so we can get put it in my phone. And then second, 2 things would be, as we go along, just make sure that we emphasize the fiscal impact is lessened by the benefit, right? And then the other one is, and I know we're gonna move into stormwater management, I hope. I saw a rough draft. I just wanna make sure certain developments, we don't give so much waiver that we impact that one of our conditions right now, you know, an issue. So just make sure, and I saw that on Code H, so that's what brought that up. Thank you.
With that, directors, thank you very much, Chris, Randall, and
Thank
Lynn.
you to the staff for
Yes.
doing
Thank
all
you.
the work on this.
Absolutely. Good presentation. It's a really good program. So I'm excited about seeing where we go and how it turns out. So with that, I am going to adjourn this workshop. We will reconvene at 6:30 for our regular board meeting. We are adjourned. We're going to call to order the Siloam Springs Board of Directors for April 7th, 2026. Roll call.
Director Blair, Director Burns,
Here.
Wiles,
Here.
Hunt,
Yes.
Risler,
Here.
Allen,
Here.
Carroll,
Here.
Corum.
Thank you, sir. At this time, if you will please stand with me as Director Carroll leads us in prayer, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father, tonight we are thankful for the opportunity to be here. We thank you for your presence, for the opportunity to use your wisdom, your courage, your strength to make decisions that affect our community, the people within, your people. Thank you, Father, for the blessing that you have provided and that we have opportunity to be a blessing to others. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask anyone that has an electronic device to please silence that or turn that off so we don't have an interruption during our meeting. And I will thank you very much for doing that. The first item on our agenda is public input. I would like to ask if there is anyone here that would like to address the board on an item that is not on our regular agenda. If you would, you may come to the podium and you will have 3 minutes. So is there anyone that would like to speak to the board at this time? If not, I would ask, is there anyone here that would like to address the board on an item that is on our consent agenda? There is not. We will then move forward to our consent agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes, March 17, 2026. B, special called meeting minutes, March 11, 2026. Item C, special called meeting minutes for March 12, 2026, and that would have been in the morning. Item D, the special called meeting minutes, March 12, 2026, and that would have been in the afternoon. Directors, is there anything that you would like to have removed for separate consideration?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
A.
A, thank you. Anyone else? If not, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with item A removed.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes.
Director Risler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, Director Burns.
It's quick. I didn't get time to send an email. Scrivener's error. Director Burns is called Director Blair noted, and then followed at the end by Director Burns. I don't mind being called Director Blair, but I don't think she would want to quote my words.
Well, and the one above says Director Carroll, but it refers to Director Wiles.
Well, I can't help Director Carroll.
So we have those noted.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we will make those corrections and get the corrected copies to the board. With that, then, is there anyone else? Then I would ask for a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes, March 17, 2026, with the Scribner error corrected.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes.
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. With that, we will move to our staff reports, the January financials, and the Planning Commission meeting minutes from February 10th, 2026. Christina?
Madam Mayor, the January financials are attached to the agenda, and if there are any questions about that, please direct those to myself or Kim Williams. I would also just like to make a note that the January financials will always have year-end accruals absent from the month of January. So, for example, if there is revenue from December that is billed in January, that gets accrued back to December.
Very good. Thank you.
And-
Directors, questions? If not, thank you, Christina. We will move on to our contracts and approvals. Budget amendment, Parks and Recreation, Cemetery, ground penetrating radar for $25,500. And this will come from the Perpetual Care Fund. Jason?
Good afternoon, Board. Jason Davis, Community Services Director. Before you, we are bringing our GPR. We currently do not have a GPR at the cemetery. Ours went down. So right now, Travis's team is having to do pins and try to find grave locations by using pins and kind of staking them in the ground. So this will be able to kind of get us where we need to find these graves, locate them, and make sure they're in the right positions. And it would be coming out of the Perpetual Care Fund that we have. And I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, sir. Directors, comments or questions? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the budget amendment for the cemetery? There is not. I will ask for a motion to approve this budget amendment in the amount of $25,500.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes.
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yeah.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is the approval for a contract, Public Works Department, Wastewater Services Division, Manhole Rehabilitation Project with Midwest Infrastructure Coatings, $175,925. Josh?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Josh Napier, Public Works Director. Tonight, we are seeking approval on a contract with Midwest Infrastructure Coatings in the amount of $175,925 for the line or the application of a pure polyurethane to roughly 500 vertical foot manholes in Sewer Basin 8. Sewer Basin 8, through studies from 2019, 2020, showed to account for roughly 30 to 35% of all of our I&I. This will reduce that significantly. We did do an advertisement for bid the first part of February. We received 3 bids on March 10th. And 2 of those bids were deemed as unresponsive, leaving Midwest Infrastructure Coatings as the only responsive bidder. This project will be paid for out of general line maintenance, that has $250,000 in it. This project, after completion, will leave roughly $74,000 for additional improvements. So, with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Josh. Directors, Comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
Hey, Josh, so, help me, I like maps, so Basin 8.
Yeah, so Basin 8, our first manhole is just behind the revenue office. And we'll run all the way over to just below or down the hill from Simmons. It's roughly 30 to 34 manholes in that span on our main line. Like I said, 500 vertical, we're gonna price it on vertical footage, but it should cover 30 to 35 manholes. And that section run right under the railroad tracks, right through the Simmons properties, and in right in front of the Simmons lift station.
So is part of that on East Main by the scrapyard, that the elevated
Yes.
manholes, is that part of
Yes.
that project?
Yeah, those will be lined, yes, sir, those ones. And on that note, if I can, pin a flower or two, we did get them raising of manholes, we got proposals for that at the end of last year, and that was gonna be roughly $130,000. And our staff, took that on themselves and did probably 17 manholes in our system for, the price of concrete and, whatever. So, anyway, big savings there. So shout out to those guys that have been doing that. But yeah, all those manholes you've seen them working on that are raised up out of the floodplain. We did also install watertight lids on all those, and then this lining as well will help
And does
significantly.
that go
reduce-
all the way down to Washington Street?
Not
Because
quite that far. We're just like
Okay,
half a block from there.
because those
There
have
are-
those have gray water,
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
wanna,
yeah.
that's a good word for it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Comes out, percolates, would it help to elevate those, or would that make it?
No, there is a plan in the next
Okay.
few weeks to redo the tops of those as well, put new rims and covers on them, bolt downs as well. We
Awesome.
just finished that last manhole behind the revenue office last week. So we're giving the guys a break from manholes because that's not fun work.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the contract for the wastewater services division? There is not, so do I have a motion to approve the contract for the wastewater services division with the manhole rehabilitation?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Director Hunt,
Yes.
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wilds.
Yes.
Motion is approved. With that, we will move to approval for purchase, fire department ambulance purchase and letter of intent, Pinnacle emergency vehicles, $337,690.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
staff is requesting that we withdraw this request at this time.
All right, okay. So with that, we are withdrawing this request at this time per the administrator and staff. All right, thank you very much. Next will be the budget amendment for the fire department, Act 833 capital grant expenditures for $60,000. Dustin?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor, members of the board, thank you. Tonight we are requesting your approval to expend an additional amount of money. This amount of money will come from our Act 833 grant that we receive from the state every year. Currently, we have accumulated over $90,000, I believe, in that account line of Act 833 funds. These funds could be used for only specific items. Some of those items include radios, MDTs for our trucks, and bunker gear, things like that. But we learned that we could also use this for the storage building that we're wanting to build out on our training grounds. We did ask for approval through the 2026 budget approval process for a storage building to be built out at our training grounds. This will be a 2-bay metal building that will be used to store training props as well as 2 of our reserve apparatus. These reserve apparatus are used in lieu of our frontline apparatus when they go or break down. But these reserve apparatus will be moved to our training division, hopefully to be housed in the storage building, so we can utilize those during training evolutions as to keep our frontline trucks in service at all times. So we're asking to be able to spend this $60,000 additional to the $50,000 that we requested in the capital
budget for this budget cycle for this training building.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am?
Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Lisa.
To clarify, you said 50, or is it 55?
I think it was 55,
Okay.
actually, that we were approved for, yes.
Anyone else? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this budget amendment for the fire department? There is not. Do I have a motion to approve the budget amendment for $60,000 for the fire department?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes?
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is the approval for the MOU with the United States Marshals Service. And it looks like Derek, you're up.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, this is an MOU, memorandum of understanding between our city and police department and the U.S. Marshals, their Fugitive Apprehension Task Force. What this will allow us to do essentially is we'll designate an officer that in times of need where they need additional manpower, that officer can work inside the city alongside with the Marshal's office, or they can work outside the city along with the Marshal's service. So this MOU details that, requires signature for them to move forward and for us to designate the officer and get him sped up with the training and the procedures for the Marshal service. He will only be a part-time TFO, so he will only act in times of need. If we had an incident that required a lot of boots on the ground, we could bring in the Marshal service or vice versa if they needed them. But it would primarily, as it was written, be for more of the violent crimes and the violent offenders.
Thank you, sir. Directors, comments or questions? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the approval for the MOU? There is not. Do I have a motion to approve the MOU with the United States Marshal Services?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes?
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we move into our ordinances. Ordinance 26-02, first reading, amending City Municipal Code, Parks Rental and Cemetery Fees. Jason?
Madam Mayor, members of the board, Jason Davis, Community Services Director. In front of you is an ordinance amending our municipal code for our park rentals. As you can see in your booklet, we're trying to align to be basically with the region. We have not had any increases except for a CPI with our community building and our FAC. So this will help get us back in line and help with some of those much needed repairs as we move forward and we grow. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David?
Jason, I understand by the memo, did the previous ordinance authorize increases every year based on the CPI?
For the way I understand it, for the FAC and the community building only.
Only? Because the red line we have, I'm just concerned whether we're actually seeing what's being charged now or what was being charged in 2050.
Yeah, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Travis, but what you have in there is in the ordinance. That's what is being charged currently. The only thing that we have changed would be the community building and the FAC. Is that correct? Yes, sir.
FSC and community building are not current in the written ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, I just got a little confused on those things because, like the rental fee on the one, I guess it's page, well, it's the second, it's the third to last. $5 an hour is what it was for the softball and baseball fields. and now it's $40 for 2 hours. And so I got lost. Were we charging only $5 an hour
Yes, sir.
recently?
Yes.
And was this the amount that was in the 2015 ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Why would we not have been every year changing it?
I'm not sure on that, to be honest with you.
I mean, we're talking 11 years. And $5 an hour for a baseball field is,
It's very low. Yes, sir.
okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Brad?
So, my note says, great job. That was my note when I sat down, but, it's an example of, these are place-based amenities, and they are revenue creators, and I'm excited of the potential of the future underneath the comprehensive plan, because these facilities create significant revenue, if we continue to expand, because it brings in that outside resource. They've got to stay, they play, they
Yes,
stay
sir.
here, they spend money, and I think this is a great first step towards that. So, thank you for getting on top of that. And I was on the board then, and I couldn't tell you why, well, I can make up some things why I think it didn't change, but it's irrelevant. It's changing now,
Yes, sir.
and that's important.
I think, to be 1,000% honest, you know, Travis wrote this up and presented it to Christina and I, and we tweaked a few things, but I've got to give Travis the credit on that, writing that, so.
Madam Mayor.
Jason?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
Okay, Lisa, and then I'll come to you, Mindy.
I noticed when I was going through the rates, why, when we are doing the baseball, softball field rentals, we're doing $40 for 2 hours, and then $40 for 2 hours with lights? Are we not recouping costs for utilities?
Not on that. We just tried to get it to where it was the same, so it'd be easier for people, and we're already increasing it from that amount already, so we felt like 40 was a good price.
Whether they use the lights or not? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I have, I'm gonna bring it up at this time, because that's not my ward, but I have a citizen over there that calls me all the time when the lights are left on. And so they'll call the next morning, the lights were on all night. Is there any way we can automate those that come off because they tend to get left on?
I can talk to Phil about that and see what it would take. Yeah, I thought that they had
Oh, okay,
something.
yeah, because I get that phone call every time.
Yeah.
And I don't mind getting a phone call, I'm just saying.
Right, sure.
It's just,
Madam Mayor.
Mindy?
Just to clarify, who is being charged, like for the baseball, softball field rentals?
Just it's different teams or whoever.
So, the Boys and Girls Club runs the league every fall or every spring. Are they getting, okay, so they're not getting charged, but the high school doesn't have to use the field anymore. They've got their own field now, don't they? Okay.
Your traveling teams and things like that.
Okay. And then do they just have to sign up for the field use through, okay. And then for, like the sand volleyball and pickleball courts, those are for tournament situations, right?
It's usually at parties.
Okay, especially sand volleyball, right?
Sand volleyball mainly.
Okay.
And pickleball's grown so much over the years. I mean,
Well,
it's just,
it has, but you're not talking about starting to
Right.
charge for individual play.
right.
Or just for
Right.
tournaments specifically. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, David?
Regarding the cemetery, I was a little surprised the differentiation on the proposal for an upright stone is only a $25 increase from what it is now, but the flat one is a $125 increase. So I'm kind of lost as to, did we just do all these numbers just to make them round numbers and make it easy?
Basically, we tried to look at the region and what they were going off of and get close to that number is basically what we were trying to do.
Well, almost every other place is doing 275 or, well, there's 850 but it just seems odd to increase the flat stone by $125 up to 400 and the upright stone is only a $25 increase. And on top of that, to open, they have to pay for the grave, but then they have to pay to open $500 to dig the grave.
Yes, sir.
It seems like an awful lot that the money that the city is charging. I mean, we used to try to make money on the grave sales, but not necessarily everything else. And so we've doubled the opening and closing costs. Well, a little less than double, but then we're doubling if you want to have it open on a Sunday or a Saturday, we're doubling it to 400 and 200. It just seems odd. I had a frustration, a problem with the front saying that we've just not kept up with the cost of maintenance, and I'm glad we're doing this. I'm like, Brad, hey, it's getting done. I just asked why we have not done it before. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this ordinance for the park rental and cemetery fees? If not, directors, do I have a motion to place ordinance 26-02 on its first reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes?
Director Whistler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is ordinance 26
Madam Mayor?
I'm sorry, Christina.
Ordinance number 26-02, an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 74, Parks and Recreation, and Chapter 26, Cemeteries, of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, including sections 74-72, 74-142, 26-35, and 26-36 pertaining to policies, procedures, and fees.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we'll move to ordinance 26-03, first reading, amending section 35-185 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from R2 to C2, 1218 East Kenwood Street. Ben?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. Before you is the first reading of a rezoning to 1218 East Kenwood, as the mayor stated, going from R2 residential medium to C2 roadway commercial. C2 zone is being requested because they would like to use an office use at that location. The 2040 land use map designates this area as regional commercial, and this designation is appropriate for the proposed C2 zone. The neighborhood primary functions as a emerging commercial corridor that's supportive of regional commercial uses and scalings of large lots and such developments. The proposal is also appropriate because of its proximity to Highway 412, just being to the north end of that parcel. The lot meets the minimum C2 zoning requirements and is appropriate for the applicant's intended future use. Currently, the site does have a vacant house on that, and we do believe it will be remodeled to suit for the office. With that, staff finds that the rezoning does meet the minimum lot requirements for C2, and we're available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brad?
we were just noting whose house that used to be, but that's not my question. So it makes sense on this one. Is that just for, on the outline of what we received, that's the only section that's changing and everything else is staying R2? Or is it that whole,
I believe it's just the highlighted parcel, is that correct? Yeah.
okay. And then, and I'm gonna, I'll keep hounding this one, and it's gonna show up again tonight. Every time I see a piece of property that has a pond on it, I immediately think of stormwater management. And this one, as we build, I'm assuming hard surface, right? It's gonna increase that, and so, that's my only concern as we develop that area. And it is a little, the runoff there, I don't have to do the hydrology on that one, but that's my only concern. It does make sense. I don't see R2, I struggle with, that's why I'm just, the whole thing needs to be rezoned, but I guess maybe in time. That is all, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 26-03? There is not. Do I have a motion to place ordinance 26-03 on its first reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes?
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Christina?
Ordinance number 26-03, an ordinance amending section 35-185 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code City Zoning Map, rezoning from R2 to C2, property located at 1218 East Kenwood Street.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we will move to ordinance 26-04, first reading, amending section 35-185 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from R2 to R5, the 800 block of South Arkansas Highway 16. Ben?
Yes, thank you again, Madam Mayor, members of the board. This is a additional rezoning request. As the mayor stated, it's an 800 block of Highway 16, consists of almost 24 and a half acres, and going from R2 to R5 for townhomes. This is the first rezoning to R5 since we adopted the Unified Development Code. Based off of the letter of intent, the applicant is proposing single-family townhomes at this location. Sites is currently vacant and with access off of Highway 16, as well as potential access to J Street on the other end of the lot. R5 zoning district is used for specifically for townhomes. And we did look at that on the future land use map, and it was designated as very appropriate under that neighborhoods 2 designation. The neighborhood primarily functions as an emerging residential area that features a mix of single family surrounded by to the west and south and east. And of course, we have multifamily to the north. That's the Spring Valley apartment complex. Then we have, we looked at potential impacts caused by the zoning or rezoning, and this was reviewed with a proposal, and we found that it would not create unacceptable or dangerous traffic conditions. So staff finds that the rezoning does meet the minimum lot requirements for the proposed R5 zone. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
Ben, do you have any idea when the designation for this piece of property went to R2, the one it's at now?
It's been many, many years. There was another subdivision that was planned there called Bellevue. You might recall that was
That's what I was
3 or 4 years ago. That one never got off the ground. I believe there was an annexation, if memory serves. I think the front part was in the city, but the back acreage wasn't. And I think they annexed it in and came in with R2. I'm just going off my memory with that, but that's what I think happened with it.
I knew there was something that we had looked at one time. My real concern is that you've got R2 to the east, R2 to the south. Even though it's PD, it's R2 to the west. And really the only thing that fits this is what is to the north. And I did drive out to the newer homes off of Excelsior and the other streets off of Kenwood. And we received a letter from a young couple saying they saved up their money, they bought this home, they'd looked forward to it for 6 years, they saved their money. And I don't blame them for being frustrated that there's a chance that tall townhomes, second story, can see into their backyard. We've had this in other places come up before. And we could say all we want about, you know, the zoning, the enforcement of code, all this on the nuisance chapter, but we can say all we want about that. It doesn't ever really happen. I'm really confused how the report can say, I mean, the very first one, will not substantially interfere with other owners' reasonable peace and enjoyment of their neighboring property. City staff is aware of no evidence that the proposed rezoning for single-family townhome use will cause a consistent disturbance. I disagree. I mean, I understand that's the staff's opinion, but I don't understand how we cannot consider the fact that these are not single-story. These are two-story, and that they will have the propensity for lack of privacy. And then it says, will it be compatible with the location and character of the surrounding existing neighborhoods? Well, yes, to the north only. The other ones around it are single-family homes. So I think a lot of the answered questions that come up in the Title III of Chapter 35 does not actually really properly answer the questions. It says townhome uses in this area are not anticipated to burden the present or future use of neighboring properties. Well, how do we anticipate or not anticipate that this could cause a problem? And then lastly, on letter E, is it adequately supported by infrastructure, including without limitation streets and parking? We address the water system, we address the sewer system, we address the storm drain system, but we don't address the streets, which is actually listed in the thing, except to say the city engineer doesn't see that it would be a problem. All you gotta do is drive out there and see this supposed street that connects from this nicer housing, newer housing addition. And I don't even know if it's a real street. It looks like a paved driveway that makes a weird shape and ends up on 412 alongside the storage units out there off of 412. And these letters we got from residents, they're absolutely right. This is going to be a drive-through route that people will take, and they'll be racing down through their neighborhoods to get out on Highway 412 without having to wait in line at the 412 stoplight. So I see this as nothing but a real problem with what is being proposed. Now, if they wanted to remove the privacy problem and only put one story that's on the east end overlooking these homes, that'd be a different story, but that's apparently not the plan. So I have a real problem with this whole development. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And Chris, you have,
Yes, Madam Mayor, I did want to address one thing. The northeast corner of this lot of the neighboring subdivision has a detention pond that has a paved access drive that goes to the northeast, and it's my understanding after talking with the fire marshal that that's actually a temporary fire access to that subdivision. That's not intended to be a permanent access route to the subdivision for day-to-day traffic off of that northeast corner of the neighboring subdivision. Jace has a stub out that goes to the west. If you look at your screen, the screen in front of you, you can see that just to the east side of this subdivision, it says East Jace Street. East Jace Street stubs out to the west that would connect to a future development to this and will eventually be connected to Highway 16. That's a requirement by fire code. The fire code requirement is based off of the subdivision to the east of this property has to have a specific number of access points that connects to permanent routes. The temporary route was on the northeast corner of the neighboring subdivision, was just intended to be used until that permanent route was established. And I would deflect any additional questions on that to the fire marshal's office.
Thank you.
But
David?
are you saying East Jace will connect into the new development?
That's correct. It'll be a requirement that East Jace, where it stubs out, you can see that about midway on the
Yeah.
east side of this development. It'll make a connection through this development and connect to Highway 16, either with this project or with a future project.
When I went and drove this housing development that's there now, there were 3 cars that went down the fire access road, of which it's not wide enough to be a street. It doesn't look like a street, but that's not keeping anyone from using it as a street.
That's correct.
So,
That
so, I
can
mean, there's
be-
even a gate in the middle of it. It's open, but
It's my understanding that it should be gated. It's, according to the fire marshal, I talked to him today, or the fire chief. It is my understanding that that location can be gated after it's no longer being used, and can be gated today, I believe, as long as it has access for the fire trucks to get into it.
yeah, I took a picture. The gate's wide open.
Chief Kendall?
Okay, I'm gonna do my best to try to remember some history on this project. So I was in the fire marshal's office when this project and the one to the west of it were proposed. Jace was supposed to connect to Highway 16. That project didn't happen, of
Right.
course. And so if they wanted to build over 35 single dwelling units, they were gonna have to make this secondary access. That was done with a gate. The gate was locked and they were required to have a Knox padlock on that gate. So fire department had access into it. I don't know why it's open today, but it should be able to be closed. Yep. And then once Jace actually connects to 16, that's gonna be better for our response anyways. That can be gated and just left shut and left as an emergency access point as it's supposed to be today.
It's really not off of 412. It's really not going anywhere. Like, it's not leading to a housing addition at the south end of that street. It's just kind of winding around, as you said, to be a fire access to.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that answers that. Thank you, Chief.
And I would,
Yes.
add, Mayor, since the planning commission did not hear that information, if that is used in the determination by any of the board members, I would recommend forwarding this back to the planning commission for additional consideration if you choose to use that in your determination.
And that is what we really should do if that's going to be part of our decision, is remand it back to the planning and zoning, because they have not heard this information, and I'm sure would be a part of their determining factors.
They have to hear everything we hear.
They have to hear it. If they haven't heard it, we are not supposed to consider it. We're supposed to remand it back. So,
And
yes.
that is correct, except there may be an exception. I'll refer this to legal, since this is a mandatory requirement by the fire code to make that connection in the future. I'm not sure if it would be required to go back to the planning commission because it's a preempt requirement by federal law.
So,
We may have
Heather?
some of the public here that we should at least hear.
yeah.
That's
we
a good
will.
question, and
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I would have to check. I don't know if it's mandated by federal law, but it would be mandated by the Arkansas Fire Code, which derives from federal precedent. But yeah, so I would need to check on that. I think regardless of what's put there, if the road has to go through per the fire code, then it has to go through. So I don't know if that's anything that could change, the planning commission's determination, but I'll check on that if y'all want me to.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Can
Brad.
we have further discussion, or are we kicking it back before we continue?
Well, I'm going to ask, do I have a motion to remand this back to planning and zoning for reconsideration with this information presented?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to remand back to planning and zoning. Roll call.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes?
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Ordinance 26-04 will be remanded back to planning and zoning, and
Madam Mayor, for
Yes.
continuity of public notice, I
Yes.
would say that this will be this will be heard by the planning commission at the planning commission in May.
in May.
First meeting in May.
And what date is that in May? Can you tell me that, Ben, please? So we can let the public know.
Second Tuesday, but let me get it on the. May the 12th.
May the 12th. So for the public's knowledge, this will be heard before the Planning and Zoning Commission, May 12th.
Can somebody ask a question since they couldn't bring it up at the beginning, since they weren't, because they didn't know?
Well, if it has to do with the information that we're talking about, no, because that's part of why we're remanding it back, is so they can hear that, and then they'll come back to us. So that's the whole reason that it's being remanded back, is we're not hearing information that they have not heard.
You had a unanimous vote?
I'm sorry.
Did you have a?
Yes, we had a unanimous vote. So, yeah, it will be May 12th. Yeah. So, with that, we will move on to ordinance 26-05, single read for Waive competitive bidding for the Public Works Department, wastewater treatment plant, HMI PLC controls on generator switchgear, Nixon Power Systems, $64,000. Josh?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Josh Napier, Public Works Director. The wastewater plant uses a Kohler generator and switchgear to provide emergency backup power during utility outages. The HMI and PLC controller has suffered some damage and at this point is obsolete, which consequently no longer supports that auto transfer, requiring staff to do that transfer. Usually it's electrical staff, so they're trained to do that, but it's still not the safest option. Nixon Power Services is the authorized Kohler distributor in the region and possesses the expertise to install the proprietary software for upgrading this switchgear equipment. There is $100,000 in the budget, capital budget for this. Price comes in at $64,000, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
So, on my packet, on my computer, it's ordinance 24-05, but it's 26-05, as presented.
That is correct.
I mean, I support you, Josh,
Thank you.
but I'm filling in for Director Hunt's position on the board of catching these little things.
It's in
I
that
hadn't
little-
caught it.
In that little gray box.
Yes.
Almost got there.
Yeah, it does say 24.
So the recommendation on the memo has 2505? 2405. So it's just a Scribner's error. It needs to reflect 2605, yeah, so,
Scribner's error.
yeah.
Can't go backwards, can we?
No.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Now I have a real question.
Okay.
This is real. So, not that wasn't so as I went through and as I'm looking at this, and I remember, I've gone down there when we had a breakdown, but, the majority of us went down there when, Gilbert was here. We did a walkthrough. And, so as I'm reading through this and I'm trying to dig through my cobwebs in my past mind when I was into meters, you know, that sort of thing. So calibration and things like that for these, is that what's the maintenance on these? You know, anytime I see anything that's digital on the power to keep them up, is there a quarterly or an annually test on this, or what's installed?
Yeah, the city has a policy that all generators are to be exercised and, you know, have a series of checks that we do, especially at, you know, some of these more priority generators, every month. So, and then we recently talked to the fleet services manager about putting these on like an agreement with a trained generator technician that could come in and do load testing for us and all the necessary, you know, more in-depth maintenance other than what we're doing as a staff.
Is it, in my past, if that's not in place and then there's a failure and we're not logging that on a monthly, we can't go back on that record, and we get a citizen, you know, we have a failure there, at least we need some sort of record that we have done our due diligence to keep that online.
Yeah.
Because they do, if they're not cycled and exercised, then, you know, they they can also fail. And this is one of those things that failure is not an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 26-05? There is not. Directors, do I have a motion to place ordinance 26-05 on its first and only reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only?
So much.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Hunt,
Yes?
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Motion is,
Burns.
oh, I'm sorry.
Director Burns,
Thank you for recognizing me, yes.
Director Wild,
Yes.
Thank you. Christina?
Ordinance number 26-05, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of switchgear equipment necessary to restore automatic transfer functionality between utility power and generator power at the City of Siloam Springs Wastewater Treatment Plant, waiving the requirement of competitive bidding.
Thank you, ma'am. Directors, do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 26-05?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion to adopt. Roll call.
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes. Motion is approved. Ordinance 26-05 is approved, is passed. Closing items, administrators report.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, purchases in excess of $30,000 include the following: asphalt type 2 for $34,920 for streets. That's related to the FAC parking lot. Type 2 asphalt for $39,312, again for streets, for Roderick Drive. And type 2 asphalt for $49,500 for streets, and that is for Twin Springs. Airport fuel was also purchased for $38,296. The electric department received national recognition for exceptional electrical reliability again in 2025. Street Superintendent Dennis Kindy celebrated his 40th anniversary with the city on March 31st. Staff would like to thank him for his dedicated years of service to the community. The spring tree giveaway will be this Saturday, April 11th, in the library parking lot, beginning at 8 a.m. Kite Day with Touch a Truck will be held Saturday, April 11th at City Lake, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And just a reminder, spring cleanup is scheduled for next week, April 13th through 16th, and residents can find additional details on what they take or don't take on the city's website.
Very good. Thank you very much. So with that, we will move to our director's reports, and I would just like to start it off by saying thank you, Dennis Kendi, for your years of service and dedication to this city. You have led us for a long time, and we appreciate it very much, and our citizens are well aware and should be of what you have done for us. And our streets are well maintained and in good order because of your leaderships. Thank you. And the others, thank you to the electric department. I mean, we all say we know they do a good job and we know we have reliability, but whenever you're recognized nationally for years, they have had that award, and we cannot say enough about them, and thank you to them and the work they do. What they do is not easy, it's dangerous, and I can tell you I would not want to be out there in the storms and the trees are falling around you and you're trying to get service back to your residents, and they do a really good job. So thank you very much for that. So with that, we will move to the directors, and Mindy, I will start with you, and David, we will come to you, and we'll then ask for our executive session. Okay? So Mindy?
Okay, well, I hate to say what the mayor just said, but it's worth saying some of it over again. Yes, thank you to Dennis Kendi. I have a thank you next to all the money we're spending for asphalt, but that's mostly because all the asphalt is going to improve our streets. And that's due in part to Dennis and his team. And so I appreciate the work that they're doing on the streets. And yes, congratulations to the electric department. And then thank you also to Jason and his crew for spring cleanup. That's not something that all cities do, and I think sometimes we kind of forget that. But it's a pretty nice service to be able to just take our trash that oftentimes is someone else's treasure out to the curb, and someone, whether Jason and his crew or someone else, will pick it up, and it's nice to have that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ken?
I was just thinking, as everyone was talking about the electric department, I think the key word in that sentence is again. Just kind of made me think of the Razorback cross-country team. I mean, just like we almost take for granted the tremendous service, but it's good to see them receive these accolades over and over and over. So that's great. And also congratulations to Dennis, 40 years, that's amazing. That is not an invitation to retire, but so he's probably got another 10 or 20 left in him, and we expect no less, so.
Is that it?
I will spare you, yes, that's all.
All right, thank you very much. Lisa?
I know you're hearing it over and over, but I think we have the best electric department. As somebody said, it is the best in the nation. So congratulations to the electric department. And congratulations to Dennis Kinney. He used to be my neighbor, and so my children grew up with his children. And so, wow, 40 years. I'm not going to say I admire him. That's hard to stay in one job for 40 years. That's awesome. And what you've done for our community. It's amazing. I'm looking forward to the Dogwood Festival. And I want to say thank you to Lindsay and Cindy and all the people that put all the work into the Dogwood Festival. A couple of years ago, it was really hot outside, and I was driving by, and I know Lindsay's face was bright red, but she had a smile from ear to ear. And I know if it was me, I would have been exhausted. I would have been snappy. I would have been, but she didn't. She was very kind. She was always smiling. And so they do a great job. She is amazing for that. I want to announce that Constitution Camp is July 13th this year at New Life Church. We will be voting for Siloam Springs' official favorite candy again, if the mayor will accept that. But again, it's July 13th at New Life Church. And that's all mine.
Very good, thank you. And yes, we will accept that. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, kudos to the electric department and to Dennis for his 40 years. That is a testament of our community. I do want to ask Jason, is he still with us or is he gone home? Okay. Jason, wherever you are, I hope we see some sunflowers again this year. They looked awesome last year. Did want to make note on dogwood, that it is something that's going to bring a lot of people into town, but what's going to happen is we're going to have a collaboration between several groups of peoples that will come together to make this happen, and the chamber kind of heads that up, but there are others that are part of that, and it's awesome to see the collaboration we have in our community. And that was shown even on Sunday morning, 6:30, and I had to go to it so I could keep up with Director Burns, but we had the Easter sunrise service, and it was good to have the service, but it was also so neat, that's my word for the night, I guess, as well, neat, that to see the many churches that were a part of that, and the different people where we all may have same faith, same God, many things all the same, but we don't see each other. But the chance to be able to be together and to be a part of that and to have some unity there, to me that spoke a lot of volumes. I really appreciated that. And I'm glad to see that extends out into things like the Dogwood Festival and other areas within our community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Brad?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy that we're kind of starting the first of the year actually doing city business. And so the workshop tonight is relevant to moving the city forward. And so I appreciate staff doing that. And I look forward to get that timeline done and not turn into a unified development code and drag on for infinity, right? And then second would be my vision of the Chautauqua Amphitheater on the sunrise service is that there's a minimal of 1,000 people from across this community filling that hillside. I mean, that's what needs to happen. We had great last year, the weather was bad. This year was fantastic, and if you look at the sunrise, and when it was coming up, we had a owl cross us. Mm-hmm. And so that's a significant if you're into those little juju things. But I appreciate those that attended and the churches that participate in that, and those that went to thank them very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to congrats the elected department. They do a fantastic job. We have a department that is envied by so many, not just in our state, but many, many states. And it's because they have a real depth of knowledge. They have the picture of that department on our city Facebook page when they got acknowledged for this national award. Smiles on every one of them's face, and it was just really nice to see. I've known Dennis Kendi a long time, and 40 years with any one organization is an amazing accomplishment. Mm-hmm. Not many people do that nowadays, and he has to be congratulated for that. I'm appreciative our city does the spring cleanup and the fall cleanup, because a lot of cities do not do that. And so make sure everybody gets your trash out to the curb next week, because some people will find that it's treasure to them and they will take it home. I'm just saying, it happens. Not me, but I mean, I'm just saying, some people will. And I appreciate our sanitation department doing all the work on that. Thank you to Chris Paxton, Ben Rhodes, Randall Clark, and all the rest of the staff for a great workshop. This is what we need to be discussing and planning and making decisions on in the future, and a whole lot of good information, and we appreciate all the time that you guys put into that. We approved the change of zoning there at 1218 East Kenwood, where Sue in Milford, England lived. And Sue was a 26-year service on this city board, loved Siloam Springs. She grew up in Siloam Springs, maiden name Reasons, and family had a drugstore downtown. It's one of those things where you just look at the history of some families. The England family, Milford, very well known. Both of them real heroes to the city. And built that house many, many years ago. And I'm glad that something is going to be done with it now, even though it's an office, it's not a home. I'm glad something is going to be done with it. But I was mayor when we put that street sign for her, leading off of Sherry Whitlock down to the high school and on through to Tahlequah. And her husband was still alive and her kids were there, and it was a wonderful thing. Saw a lot of doctors were there because she fought all the time for the hospital. She really did. And so I was glad to see that tonight. And then I don't know if everyone saw it, but I read the news that I'm not Catholic, but the Catholic churches around the U.S. were filled more than they have been in decades. This was a great Easter. A lot of our churches were full, and it was a beautiful day. No rain. The kids didn't have to worry about hunting Easter eggs in the house, and it was a beautiful, sunshiny day, and I just appreciated that God provided us such a wonderful day for Easter. And with that, Madam Mayor, I will make a motion that we go into executive session. Is that right?
Yes, for the purpose of considering employment of a city employee.
Right.
So we have that motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes.
Director Rissler.
Yes.
Thank you. That is a unanimous vote. We will adjourn into executive session. Whenever that is completed, we will come back out and announce any decisions that are made in that session, if there are any. Thank you. Directors meeting back to order. At the end of the executive session, the directors have decided upon a motion that they would like to bring forward. So Director Wiles?
Madam Mayor, I make the motion that we respond and send the answers to the questions that we received from the candidate.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Carroll,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Wiles,
Yes.
Director Hunt,
Yes.
Director Rissler,
Yes.
Director Allen.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.